Xiefeng. In the classification of people, I divided humanity into 5 categories: ignorant people, worldly people, mortals, sages, and celestials. This classification is based on the varying degrees to which instinct, desire, emotion, reason, and spirituality dominate human nature. For instance, those driven by instinct are ignorant people, those driven by desire are worldly people, those driven by emotion are mortals, those driven by reason are sages, and those driven by spirituality are celestials. This is a broad and absolute categorization. Celestials can be further classified into ghost celestials, human celestials, land celestials, deity celestials, and super celestials. In Revelation chapter, Article 68, saints are discussed, and they belong to the celestial category. Based on the depth of their alignment with the Tao, celestials can be subdivided into ultimate beings, true beings, celestial beings, divine beings, and heavenly beings. If categorized by levels, humanity can be divided into 3 tiers. Lower level, ignorant people, worldly people, and mortals; middle level, sages; upper level, saints, including ultimate beings, true beings, celestial beings, divine beings, and heavenly beings. Among these, celestials only include human celestials and land celestials. Deity celestials and super celestials no longer belong to the human realm, while ghost celestials are also outside humanity. The purpose of classifying people is not to toy with concepts but to help us determine our position among humanity and identify the direction and goal of our progress. Without classification, it becomes difficult to establish a reference point or coordinate system for our lives. Without it, life becomes a tangled mess, and we may go through life without ever understanding what it is truly about. We know that stones, for example, can be categorized into diamonds, rubies, sapphires, cat's eyes, topazes, spinels, aquamarines, zircons, emeralds, tourmalines, garnets, jadites, opals, moonstones, sunstones, turquoise, malachites, agates, pebbles, bluestones, flint, and so on. Each type of stone has its own unique characteristics. Similarly, people can be categorized into heavenly beings, divine beings, celestials, true beings, perfected beings, saints, mortals, worldly people, and ignorant people, based on their unique traits. A sage is someone who has transcended the constraints of instinct, desire, and emotion to enter a life of reason, but they still fall short of a life of spirituality. Sages remain unclear about whether existence precedes consciousness or vice versa. They readily accept scientific knowledge, logical reasoning, empirically proven facts, and the wisdom distilled from humanity's millennia of experience. However, when it comes to transcending conventional thinking, sages are often at a loss, bewildered, and even resistant. It is akin to a scale capable of measuring up to 100 kilograms. It works seamlessly within this range but becomes useless when the weight exceeds its capacity. Recently, a friend visited my home to swim but almost drowned. He could only swim 5 meters, and beyond that, he started floundering in place. Fortunately, someone was there to rescue him, otherwise, the consequences could have been dire. The development of life Changyuan vividly illustrates this phenomenon. Many people are initially enthusiastic and actively participate, but as the path deepens, they find it difficult to keep up. They start to feel that certain aspects are unsuitable or problematic, attempting to explain things or draw boundaries based on their rational thinking as sages. They try to impose limits on the boundless mysteries of the universe using simple formulas or laws, which is both distressing and regrettable. Everything has limits. Pots, pans, trucks, and computers have their capacities, even springs have an elastic limit. The Earth's mass and speed must remain within limits to maintain balance and order. The problem is, human thought is limitless. Left to themselves, people may never break free from rigid thinking. But with guidance, they can transcend conventional thinking and enter a vast new dimension. Unfortunately, few people are humble enough to accept such guidance, while many remain stubbornly attached to their views. There are 80 billion celestial islands in the celestial islands continent waiting for people to inhabit, yet too few are able to meet the standards required. Newton discovered 3 threshold cosmic velocities, 7.9 km per second, 11.2 km per second, and 16.7 km per second. If we assume that 7.9 km per second is the universal principle, we will never escape Earth's gravitational pull. If we assume that 11.2 km per second is the universal principle, we will never break free from the solar system's control. If we assume that Einstein's principle of the speed of light applies to all matter, including non-material, then we are doomed to be forever bound to Earth, trapped in a cycle of conflict over food, clothing, shelter, and transportation. Sages are only one step away from truth. They are like someone hanging onto a withered vine over a cliff, waiting for rescue. As Buddha said, let go, and they will step into the ranks of saints. But if they refuse to let go, they will perish along with the vine. If sages do not abandon their entire way of thinking and empty their minds, they will remain sages forever. So, what exactly is the state of sages? See Revelation chapter, Article 70. Sages, Part 2. Xiefeng. Sages are the backbone of human civilization and society. They are the guardians of morality, the maintainers of harmony and order, the defenders of truth, and the disseminators of saintly wisdom. Sages are precious gifts bestowed upon humanity by nature, like lingzhi mushrooms, peonies, gemstones, and sparks of fire. The origins of sages are twofold. First, they descend from the thousand-year world. Second, they emerge through the practice and refinement of noble individuals. In other words, some sages are born with these qualities, while others are cultivated through the self-discipline and refinement of noble individuals following the teachings of saints. Sages possess the following qualities. Rationality. They think critically and do not blindly follow others. They maintain moderation in all things, avoiding extremes. They reason through matters rather than engaging in irrational disputes. They are loyal and trustworthy, never fickle or inconsistent. Humility. Recognizing their own insignificance and limitations, they revere heaven and respect the divine. Acknowledging their own ignorance, they seek the guidance of saints. Understanding their weakness, they rely on the collective strength of the masses. Knowing their abilities are limited, they never mock ordinary people. Simplicity. Those who crave dominance and seek to make waves are not sages. Those who desire sudden wealth are not sages. Those who seek overnight fame are not sages. Those who oppose the government are not sages. Those who deliberately place themselves at the center of controversies are not sages. Those who denounce their ancestors or curse their heritage are not sages. Those who incite chaos are not sages. Those who are filled with hatred and seek revenge are not sages. Harmony. Being with sages makes life feel beautiful and hopeful. Being with sages brings a sense of security and inner peace. Being with sages fosters boundless joy, free from worries. Being with sages sharpens one's thinking, making challenges easier to overcome. Willingness to help. Sages take joy in assisting others. As long as their actions do not harm nature, life, society, or the interests of others, sages gladly do good within their abilities. They impose no conditions, expect no favors in return, and seek no repayment. Frugality. Those who try to please everyone and be all things to all people are not sages. Those who seek novelty and luxury, and indulge in extravagance, are not sages. Those who frequently visit lavish mansions or entertainment districts are not sages. Those who flaunt their wealth and provoke envy are not sages. Those who decorate their homes like palaces or brothels are not sages. Those who complicate simple matters unnecessarily are not sages. Diligence. Sages are diligent because every grain of rice represents hard-earned labor. Sages are diligent because one must give before one can receive. Sages are diligent because, just as the sun and moon never cease their motion, life must remain in constant activity. Sages are diligent because heaven helps those who help themselves, while laziness leads to greed, ignorance, selfishness, and poverty. Resilience. Sages are like grass that survives after being trampled, grazed upon, or swept by floods. They persist as long as there is the slightest chance of life. Sages are like Robinson Crusoe stranded on a deserted island. They hold on to hope and never despair. Sages are like camels trudging through a barren desert. They press on as long as they have even a shred of energy left. Sages are like wild animals, injured and abandoned without the care of their kind. So long as they have breath, they rise again. I sing praises to sages, admire sages, yearn for sages, and seek out sages. Zhuge Liang once prophesied, sages will not remain in the wilderness, the world will unite as one family. Life Genuine must gather sages who are now scattered across the wilderness, remote villages, humble streets, and modest dwellings, bringing them together as one. Through the collective power of sages, humanity will be led to depart from Egypt and journey toward the land, flowing with milk and honey. Moreover, I will treat sages as dazzling pearls, embedding them atop Life Genuine's countless towering peaks, allowing them to shine eternally. I will regard sages as rare, fragrant celestial herbs, planting them amidst the picturesque mountains and rivers, in the fertile fields of the 1,000-year world, 10,000-year world, and the Elysium world, enabling them to enjoy the eternal joy of life. I wish for the members of Life Genuine to sprint forward, swiftly attaining the qualities of sages. Without pause or hesitation, they shall continue their journey toward the highest realm of life, sainthood, and ultimately reach the celestial islands continent. Amen. Run bare-bottomed when your life is on the line. Xiefeng. I usually start work at 8:30 a.m. However, 2 days ago, on January 6, 2005, I had an appointment with a friend who asked for my help with a small task at the bank. We agreed to meet at 8 a.m. at the bank's entrance. At 7:40 a.m., my friend called to remind me not to forget the appointment. He asked, "Are you still in bed?" Still groggy, I replied, "Yes." I arrived at the bank at exactly 8 a.m., but my friend didn't turn up until 8:15. I asked why he was late, and he explained that he hadn't expected me to be on time. Based on his reasoning, since I got out of bed at 7:40, I'd still need time to wash, eat, get ready, and account for at least 10 minutes of travel time. In his estimation, it was impossible for me to make it by 8 o'clock. My friend, a meticulous and methodical company manager, based his estimate on conventional reasoning, which seemed perfectly logical. The problem is that conventional thinking can't account for unconventional actions. For instance, when pressed for time, I might skip breakfast. In extreme situations, I might forego washing up. And if it were a matter of life and death, I wouldn't hesitate to bolt out the door, stark naked if necessary. Recently, while watching CNN, I saw footage of people frantically running during the Indian Ocean tsunami. Why were they running like mad? Because their lives were at stake. In such critical moments, there's no room for hesitation. Every second counts, and even if you're stark naked, you must run. A moment's delay to tidy up, shine your shoes, or open a box to grab some cash could mean the difference between life and death. Sometimes, survival hinges on how effectively you use a single minute. Now, imagine if someone knew about the tsunami 9 hours in advance and tried to warn the people on the shore, "Run quickly. A tsunami is coming." Would they believe it? Would they heed the warning? 98% of them probably wouldn't. Some might think, "This guy must be crazy." Others might dismiss him as a jealous troublemaker, envious of their seaside enjoyment. Hotel owners might accuse him of stirring up trouble to hurt their business. Or maybe someone would call 110, China's emergency number, and say, "There's someone here spreading panic, creating chaos, and disrupting order." Please send someone to take him away. Now, let's suppose someone knew a tsunami was coming half an hour in advance and shouted desperately, "Run! A tsunami is coming." Think about it, how would people react? Or suppose the rumble of the approaching wave could faintly be heard, or its towering form just barely seen. How many people would drop everything and run, bare-bottomed, without looking back? Now let's take it further. Suppose a cataclysmic tsunami, one not seen in 5,000 years, were to strike the Earth around 2013. If someone, frantic with urgency, shouted to the masses, "The tsunami is coming. Run," would they believe it? Would they act? Would they run bare-bottomed? Could they abandon their gold and silver treasures? Could they walk away from their cozy homes, their hard-earned status, and their power? Could they part with their spouses, concubines, and loved ones? Here's a brief anecdote. As I was writing this, a friend came to visit. I discussed the topic with him, asking, "What would you do if a great tsunami were to hit around 2013? He replied without hesitation, "I'd take it one day at a time. If I die, I won't die alone. So many people will die, what's there to fear? Besides, if science can't predict it, who can? Even if I wanted to escape, where would I go?" I said, "Think of it as a game of hide-and-seek. Suppose someone had the foresight to know where safety lies. Would you listen to them?" Noah prepared for 40 years before the flood. The moment the ark's door closed, torrential rains poured down. Why not learn from Noah? He replied, "Building an ark requires money. Without money, how can you build one?" I countered, "Let's assume you don't need money to join the ark, and it's already nearly complete. All you need is to prepare yourself mentally and spiritually to enter. Would you step aboard?" He brushed it off as pure nonsense and a figment of imagination. "I believe in reality, not illusions," he said. I said, "Fair enough. Hold on to your reality then. Like playing music to a cow." Dear readers, what is reality? Is yesterday reality? Is tomorrow reality? I believe reality is this: when your life is on the line, don't hesitate, just run, even bare-bottomed. Do what should be done, avoid what shouldn't. Xiefeng. Every time I step into the shower, I hear the sound of mice scurrying across the ceiling. On several occasions, I've even heard the squeaking of baby mice, confirming that a pair of mice have settled down to raise a large family, enjoying their domestic bliss. Ideally, I should find a way to drive them out, but considering that their mischief is limited to stealing dog food and that they haven't caused other troubles, I've taken no action so far and let them roam freely. However, I have issued a warning. You must know what to do and what not to do. Nature has granted you survival skills and the means to live. You have the right to exist, and I cannot deprive you of that. But there is a principle: you can build a nest on my ceiling, raise your young, and even make some noise at times. I won't hold you accountable for that. But if you overbreed, dig holes everywhere, and damage my home, I will take measures. Either I'll get a cat or lay poison everywhere. The choice is yours." The mice may have sensed this warning, or perhaps they are completely oblivious to my intentions. Regardless, if they act within bounds, they can survive safely, but the moment they grow reckless, disaster will befall them. If we compare my attitude toward the mice to that of the greatest creator's attitude toward humanity, this analogy could serve as a cautionary tale. Humanity must remain vigilant, knowing what should and should not be done. If we act recklessly and indulge our desires, who knows when a cat or poisons might suddenly appear? Could the Indian Ocean tsunami have been such a cat? Humanity as a whole must act with restraint, and so must each individual. Yuan Shikai, who disregarded moral bounds, was reviled for generations, while George Washington, who exercised restraint, was celebrated for centuries. Good fortune should not be enjoyed alone, power should not be monopolized, benefits should not be hoarded, and the world should not be ruled by one person alone. Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China, achieved greatness but failed to exercise restraint. His infamous burning of books and burying of scholars alive earned him the scorn of intellectuals for millennia. Heaven has its own scales of justice. No matter how ignorant or unaware a person may be, their heart holds its own measure. One may enjoy temporary success, but it is impossible to fool people forever. We may deceive others in some matters but not in all. Whether president or shepherd, everyone must know what to do and what not to do. We may escape human punishment, but we cannot escape the laws of the Tao. Those with power, those who have opportunities to benefit themselves, those basking in glory and praise, and those who secretly mock others for their ignorance must all learn to stop at the right point and exercise restraint. As members of Life Genuine, we especially must know what to do and what not to do. We must act as if walking a tightrope or treading on thin ice. For things we don't understand, we should stay silent, not out of indifference, but out of caution. It's okay if we don't produce masterpieces, as long as we don't create garbage. It's okay if we can't maintain peace and harmony, as long as we don't cause chaos. It's okay if we can't help others, as long as we don't harm them. Life Genuine itself must also have its boundaries. As humanity's spiritual and emotional sanctuary, it must focus on matters of the spirit and soul. In areas like politics, administration, markets, and systems, we should remain uninvolved. In these fields, we are amateurs, ignorant and unqualified. Even if we have some knowledge, we cannot monopolize every good cause. We must leave vast spaces for others to thrive and shine. All things in the world must operate within limits. The Earth can only orbit obediently within the range of gravitational forces. Should it deviate from its path, it would cease to exist. Be it tigers and leopards, gazelles and elephants, mice and cockroaches, or sparrows and insects, all can only operate within certain boundaries. Exceed those boundaries, and disaster is inevitable. Humans cannot conquer heaven, they can only align with it. Humans cannot reject heaven, they can only follow it. Though I know little of politics, the teachings of saints have revealed that a great leader governs by adapting to circumstances and going with the flow. The great controlled floods not by blocking them but by channeling the water. A reservoir must have a spillway to ensure the long-term safety of its dam. Confucius said, "At 50, I understood the will of heaven." I am not far from 50, yet I have not yet grasped the will of heaven. What I do understand, however, is that to become a sage, one must know what to do and what not to do. Material thinking. Xiefeng. Preface. Life is a non-material structure imbued with spirituality. This is the essential characteristic that distinguishes life from non-life. When we examine the myriad life forms in the vast universe, we discover that the fundamental difference between various life forms lies in their genetic structures. The type of genetic structure determines the form of life. All humans, in terms of physical form, belong to the same species and share no significant differences. However, when we delve into the realm of thought, we uncover stark distinctions among individuals. Humans can be categorized into heavenly beings, divine beings, celestial beings, true beings, perfected beings, sages, mortals, worldly people, and ignorant people. Classifying humans based solely on conceptual categories holds little significance. However, when we focus on the evolution of life, we uncover a profound mystery, the essence of reincarnation and transformation. Understanding this essence allows one's life to enter the Tao. Once on the Tao, we can rise above the dense fog of confusion and progress toward higher dimensions of life, rather than remaining stagnant or regressing to lower realms. This is the purpose of distinguishing among different categories of people. By classifying individuals into heavenly beings, divine beings, celestial beings, true beings, ultimate beings, sages, mortals, worldly people, and ignorant people, we can clearly observe the trajectory of life's evolution and the direction for self-improvement and cultivation. For instance, if you are a mortal, your life's goal should at least be to aspire to become a sage rather than conforming to worldly people. Similarly, if you are a sage, you should aim to progress toward becoming a saint, a divine, celestial, true, or ultimate being, rather than sliding backward. So, what is the fundamental difference among these different categories of people? The answer lies in their thinking. The way one thinks determines one's form of existence. Taiji Celestial. How many types of thinking exist among humans? The variations are countless, diverse, and intricate. However, when categorized systematically, human thinking can be grouped into 8 major types. Material thinking. Image thinking. Associative thinking. Illusory thinking. Visualized thinking. Taiji thinking. Formless thinking. Holographic thinking. To guide those who revere the greatest creator, respect gods and Buddhas, honor life, and revere nature into heaven, the 1,000-year world, the 10,000-year world, and the Elysium world, I have provided a concise introduction to these 8 types of thinking in articles 73 to 80 of the Revelation chapter. These explanations serve to dispel confusion and help individuals attain enlightenment swiftly. Material thinking. Material thinking is a mode of reasoning based on the superficial phenomena of nature and human society. It evaluates life's value and determines actions without considering the deeper causal relationships behind appearances. This mode of thinking disregards the underlying reasons for observable phenomena. As such, it is also known as superficial thinking, intuitive thinking, linear thinking, one-dimensional thinking, instinctual thinking, or 1 + 1 = 2 thinking. This type of thinking is characteristic of animals and ignorant people, and it is also the predominant mode of thinking among most worldly people. Let us first examine some specific manifestations of material thinking before analyzing it further. Manifestation 1: Pessimism, disappointment, anxiety, complaining, jealousy. People with material thinking are preoccupied with eating, drinking, playing, entertainment, building homes, seeking fame, accumulating wealth, and gaining power, constantly striving to outdo others. However, these desires are insatiable, leading to perpetual pessimism, disappointment, anxiety, complaining, and jealousy. Their entire lives are spent in a dazed struggle, much like dumplings boiling in a pot, constantly tumbling but never contemplating the deeper meaning behind the surface phenomena. Manifestation 2: Stealing, cheating, robbing, defrauding, swindling, deceiving, abducting, bullying, oppressing, raping, killing. To satisfy their base physiological desires without being willing to earn through legitimate labor, or due to the unfair distribution mechanisms in society, such individuals resort to stealing, cheating, robbing, defrauding, swindling, deceiving, abducting, bullying, oppressing, raping, and killing. This reflects the law of the jungle in the animal world. They seldom, if ever, consider the catastrophic consequences of their actions on their own future lives. Manifestation 3: Inciting, instigating, attacking, plundering, occupying, rioting, waging war. When their desires become too overwhelming, and deception, theft, and coercion seem inadequate or too minor in scale, what do? How do they seize what belongs to others? They manipulate others through false morality, false justice, and false democracy to incite and instigate unrest. They resort to violence, taking advantage of chaos to further their own interests. Some even mobilize entire nations to expand outward, seizing others' lands and plundering their wealth, regardless of the suffering inflicted on others. The extreme manifestations of material thinking are primarily reflected in these 3 aspects. Why do such individuals act this way? In their previous lives, they had just transitioned from the animal world and had not received timely civilizing education. Instinctual animal behaviors remain deeply embedded in their genes, making such actions seem natural to them. Having observed the animal kingdom and understood human history, they internalize the principles of evolution, leading them to conclude that humans are meant to exploit one another, every man for himself, victory belongs to the strong, and the survival of the fittest. They believe life is about amassing wealth and power, while everything else is secondary. Physically strong but intellectually simple, they perceive only the tangible material world. Concepts like the greatest creator, gods, Buddhas, and karmic retribution seem to them like myths and superstitions. They are staunch atheists, rigid materialists, and unwavering utilitarians. The material world, as it appears, is their sole reality. Their way of thinking shapes their psychological activities and behavioral patterns, directly determining their worldview and approach to life. Despite their simplicity, their destructiveness to human society is immense. They pose a great threat to civilized societies and are the primary cause of human suffering. The only solution is education. Humanity's foremost task should be to educate those with material thinking. Without addressing this issue, humanity will never experience true peace and happiness and will always face the potential risk of self-destruction. As for these individuals themselves, they will never find true happiness. More importantly, their lives cannot ascend, they can only descend to lower realms and endure the consequences of their own actions. It must be said that people with material thinking are the most pitiable and deserving of sympathy, yet they are also the most stubborn and dangerous. It is crucial to recognize that such individuals are not only found among the uneducated or the working class but also among scholars, professors, scientists, political leaders, and the wealthy. The real challenge lies in educating them. In conclusion, material thinking is the simplest and most practical form of thinking, but it is also the lowest and most primitive form of human thinking. Image thinking. Xiefeng. Image thinking refers to the process of transforming the appearance of the material world, or a tangible entity, into a pattern, symbol, melody, language, gesture, expression, or sound. For example, activities such as sketching, painting, photography, copying, rubbing, and sculpture express physical objects through patterns. These are all forms of image thinking. Similarly, cartography, whether it be maps, transistor circuit diagrams, architectural blueprints, process flowcharts, mechanical construction diagrams, assembly schematics, meridian charts, simplified musical notation, or staff notation, transforms physical entities into symbols, which is also an application of image thinking. Musical pieces such as A Moonlit Night on the Spring River, The Moon Reflected in Urquin, and the violin concerto Butterfly Lovers express the stories of nature and human experiences through melodies rich in emotional highs and lows, achieving a profound spiritual impact. This, too, belongs to image thinking. The development and evolution of the Chinese language is a result of image thinking. Our writing system began with pictographs, where visual symbols represented physical objects. Even today, characters like moon, mountain, stone, field, and water still retain traces of their original pictorial forms. When reading classic literary works such as Romance of the Three Kingdoms, Water Margin, Journey to the West, A Dream of Red Mansions, and Investiture of the Gods, we can vividly see the characters come to life, as if they are standing before us. This is a result of the author's image thinking, through which real people are transformed into literary figures. The 5-animal frolics exercise, created by the renowned physician Hua Tuo to enhance physical health, elevates the imitation of animal movements into a series of postures and gestures, another manifestation of image thinking. Theatrical performances, whether by Shakespeare or Lao Shi, rely on actors whose expressions and costumes are not genuine reflections of their personal emotions. Instead, the actors serve as vessels for their characters, vividly expressing their joy, anger, love, sorrow, and longing. This is yet another form of image thinking. Similarly, imitating dragon roars, tiger growls, frog croaks, dog barks, human shouts, horse neighs, insect chirps, and wolf howls also falls under image thinking. Image thinking is a cognitive process in which physical entities are represented by images to achieve a corresponding effect. For example, sending a photograph to a distant loved one provides comfort, even though the sender is not physically present. The landscapes and figures on a television screen are mere projections, yet their impact is nearly indistinguishable from that of real images. When watching television, we experience emotions, excitement, joy, anger, sorrow, anxiety, laughter, crying, shouting, because of how the images unfold before us. This is the effect of image thinking. Materialistic thinking, on the other hand, is direct, one-dimensional, and instinct-driven. 1 is 1, 2 is 2. It operates on basic impulses. When the wind blows, tree branches sway, this signals the arrival of cold, so one puts on a cotton coat. Hunger strikes, so one searches for food. Desire arises, so one takes action. There is little need for conscious thought, it is simply, I have no choice but to do this. Their daily actions are mechanical, passive, and obligatory, often accompanied by self-loathing, aversion, or a sense of resignation. They remain confined within a limited space or domain, repeating the same tasks daily, even for a lifetime, much like their ancestors, without creativity, independence, or autonomy. However, those who engage in image thinking are different. They use their minds actively. Their thought process is not I have no choice but to do this, but rather I choose to do this. They transcend the physical world and enter the realm of spirit, breaking free from the constraints of time and space. They transform fleeting moments, phenomena, or events into something relatively eternal, thus leading a freer existence than those governed solely by materialistic thinking. It can be said that artistic creation is a process of image thinking. Painting, composing music, cartography, photography, acting, and literary writing all fall within its scope. Image elements transcend reality, the mundane, time and space, and even personal worries. They have a profound effect on the human spirit, elevating one's state of mind. For instance, young fans who decorate their rooms with large posters of their idols experience a form of emotional and spiritual regulation. Similarly, when we internalize life genuine as our spiritual and emotional home, we can free ourselves from the suffering and burdens caused by worldly attachments, thus achieving a higher level of spiritual refinement. This is the transformative effect of elevating one's mode of thinking. It directly influences our lives and our very existence. Associative thinking. Xiefeng. Associative thinking refers to the mental process of grasping a natural phenomenon and then using it as a springboard to make further connections, drawing parallels, and linking together other related factors. A classic example of associative thinking is Newton, Apple, universal gravitation. Newton observed the common natural phenomenon of an apple falling to the ground, which led him to the concept of gravity. He then extended this concept to include mass, speed, space, and other factors, ultimately deriving the three laws of motion. This is associative thinking. For example, the whirlpool phenomenon that often occurs when draining water from a bathtub can lead one to think of the movement direction of Earth's magnetic field lines. The spiral ascent of a bean vine can remind one of the movement of celestial bodies. The natural observation of wood floating and iron sinking on water can be connected to the concept of buoyancy, which then leads to the shipbuilding industry. Observing the discontinuity of an object's motion might lead to associations with quantum mechanics. The relationship between motion, mass, and gravity can be linked to spacetime curvature. The role of consciousness can lead one to think of the holographic nature of the universe, and so on. All of these examples are manifestations of associative thinking. A skilled detective can infer a suspect's character traits, motivations, and whereabouts from a few clues. A qualified forensic expert can deduce a criminal's physical features, appearance, and even their clothing style from the victim's wounds and facial expressions. A seasoned traditional Chinese medicine doctor can link a patient's complexion to internal organ health. A master of face reading, Mian Xiang, can infer a person's past actions and future fortunes from their facial features. A feng shui master can assess a person's living environment based on their handwriting and habitual movements. A skilled politician can sense the rise and fall of dynasties or the coming of a new era based on public psychological behavior. An economist might predict fluctuations in the stock market or the economic trajectory of a country based on a single event. A sociologist could infer the loss of a nation's values and morals from the prevalence of issues like prostitution, drug use, and organized crime. Even a fashion designer can predict future trends in clothing based on street fashion and the pace of people's movements. Associative thinking is primary, inventive, pioneering, and unique. It is a form of divergent thinking. Many people may appear to engage in associative thinking, but in reality, they are merely applying knowledge or accumulated experience from others. For example, many farmers can predict the cycle of farming based on the changing seasons, spring sowing, summer growing, autumn harvesting, winter storing, but this is not the result of their associative thinking. Instead, it is a reflection of accumulated experience in their awareness. Many people can connect the pain of arthritis to changes in the weather, but this, too, is the result of knowledge and experience, not associative thinking. Similarly, many businesspeople can predict which goods to buy and sell based on regional, temporal, and seasonal differences, but this is again the result of experience, except in rare cases. In professions like engineering, technical work, and scholarly research, it might seem like associative thinking is at play, but in reality, they are simply applying the knowledge learned in school or accumulated through experience. For example, Newton's association of a falling apple with the law of universal gravitation is the result of associative thinking. However, if a college student claims that he can associate a falling apple with the law of universal gravitation, he is merely recounting the knowledge he has learned rather than demonstrating his own associative thinking, unless he had never heard of Newton or the concept of gravity before. Strictly speaking, only thought processes that lead to new discoveries, inventions, creations, or theories qualify as associative thinking. From this perspective, those who truly possess associative thinking abilities include scientists, inventors, forensic experts, traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, face readers, feng shui masters, outstanding politicians, and military strategists. Engineers and technicians who develop new products can also be loosely included in this category. The slow but steady progress of human civilization is primarily driven by individuals with associative thinking abilities. Without them, modern civilization as we know it would not exist. Material thinking is a form of fixed thinking, whereas associative thinking is divergent thinking. It breaks through the limitations of material thinking, surpasses the imitation and replication of image thinking, and directly extends its reach into the unknown. This leads to new discoveries, inventions, and paths forward. However, associative thinking is still far from unlocking the ultimate mysteries of the universe. I have realized this from studying the thinking of great scientists such as Newton, Einstein, Planck, and Hawking, as well as from observing their attempts to establish a unified field theory of the universe. For humanity as a whole, I hope that more people will develop associative thinking abilities. To illustrate the difference, to transport 6 tons of cargo from point A to point B, which is 800 kilometers away, a person with associative thinking will simply use a heavy-duty truck and complete the task alone in one day. In contrast, someone relying solely on material thinking, even if they can carry 50 kilograms and walk 100 kilometers per day, would require 120 people and 8 days to accomplish the same task, a waste of effort with inferior results. Meanwhile, someone limited to image thinking would not even be able to conceive of a solution. From an artistic perspective, image thinkers are more remarkable than material thinkers, but from a practical perspective, when hungry, a real bun will satisfy hunger, while a picture of a bun, no matter how lifelike, cannot solve the problem. For Life Genuine members, I hope that your thinking will not be confined to associative thinking alone, as it is still a lower-level form of thinking. It is like the challenge of transmitting information across the Atlantic. A material thinker would build a ship to transport messages. An image thinker would lay underwater cables. An associative thinker would use radio waves. And we would. Illusory thinking. Xiefeng. Imagine yourself in the middle of a vast desert. The sky is a dull gray, and there are no reference points in sight, no compass, no GPS, nothing to guide you. Do you think you can find your way out? You cannot. You might scoff at me and say, "Nonsense. As long as I keep walking forward, step by step with determination, I will surely make my way out." Yes, theoretically and logically speaking, you should be able to escape the desert. After all, each step you take is forward. How could you possibly fail to walk out? Unfortunately, reality does not align with theory. Despite every step being correct and taken in a forward direction, you will ultimately end up right back where you started. Note, this is not about walking around the earth in a complete circle but rather about being lost within the desert itself. Why is it that you cannot walk out of the desert? From a scientific perspective, if one of your feet is even slightly larger than the other, or if one leg is just a little longer than the other, the tiny discrepancies over millions of steps will accumulate, leading to a huge deviation in your final destination. Though you feel as if you are walking in a straight line, you are actually moving along a curve. Eventually, you will return to your starting point. Science offers a valid explanation, yet it remains a theoretical deduction and logical reasoning. It is not the true cause. The real reason lies in what I call illusory thinking. It is common knowledge that water flows downward. However, illusory thinking can make water return to where it started. I once saw a paradoxical image in Reader's Digest, a fascinating illusion of flowing water. The image depicted a small waterfall with water cascading downward. Yet, somehow, the water eventually flowed back to the top of the waterfall. The visual presented no apparent flaws, nor did the logic seem questionable, yet the water ultimately returned to its starting point. Strange, isn't it? This is the power of illusory thinking. There is an old folk saying, "Cut down the millet bundles, and you'll stir up the wandering spirits." This refers to a peculiar phenomenon. Every year during the millet harvest, farmers gather the crops into bundles. However, for about half a month to a month after the harvesting begins, people frequently get lost when venturing out at night. Strangely, even in places they are intimately familiar with, on paths they have walked countless times, they still lose their way. Some wander in circles all night until the rooster crows or they hear human voices, only then do they suddenly snap out of their confusion and find their way home. It truly seems as if the wandering spirits have been angered and have clouded their vision. What causes this? The prevailing theory suggests that certain molecules, or scents, released into the air after the millet is harvested have a narcotic effect on the nervous system, inducing a state of illusory thinking. So, what exactly is illusory thinking? Answer: illusory thinking occurs when the nervous system is numbed by a certain substance or non-material, creating illusions and hallucinations that lead to a distorted perception of reality. This altered state of mind is what we call illusory thinking. Once someone falls into illusory thinking, an outside observer might see them as trapped in an illusion, but from their own perspective, they feel intelligent and rational. They firmly believe that every step they take is correct. Whether analyzed theoretically or deduced logically, there appears to be no issue. Yet, in the end, their conclusions are absurd and completely contrary to their original intentions. Illusory thinking is like a maze, a trap of the mind. In ancient times, some military strategists trained in Taoist arts could set up bewildering formations that induced illusory thinking. Once a person entered, their mind would become disoriented, making it nearly impossible to find a way out. Step by step, everything seems correct, but the result is wrong. Always right yet forever lost. This is illusory thinking. From a macro perspective, all of humanity exists within a grand illusion. Everyone is trapped in illusory thinking, though they are unaware of it. The first article of the chapter of Revelation is titled, "The 36 8 trigrams arrays that are hard to break and impossible to solve." We believe humanity is making progress, don't we? Yet, in the end, we will return to where we started, unless someone without illusory thinking leads the way. Otherwise, we will never escape the desert. Let me give you an example. Most people have probably never heard of Seth and Oren. Their entire body of work is a classic example of illusory thinking. In the 1960s, a New Age philosophy emerged in the United States, with Seth's teachings at its core. In China, this philosophy is represented by the New Age Forum. Recently, an article titled Beyond Time and Space, The Eternal Soul, was published on the Life-a-Chanuan website, exemplifying this ideology. If you carefully study the works of Seth, Oren, and the New Age Forum, you will initially be struck by their profound insights and transcendent thinking. Their words seem like divine revelations rather than human thoughts. Every sentence appears to carry deep wisdom, surpassing even Einstein's theory of relativity in complexity. Readers often first feel an overwhelming sense of humility, as if they are insignificant before such grandeur. But as they delve deeper, they begin to experience a sense of intellectual superiority, as though they are enlightened beings standing above the masses. They feel as if everyone else is drunk, while they alone are sober. However, if they continue further, confusion sets in. It is like Tang Seng entering the spider cave, trapped in an endless web. Every sentence sounds logical and correct, yet there is no way out, no clear direction. They speak of transcending time and space, of the eternal soul, but after transcending, where does one go? What is the purpose of eternal existence? No matter how much one studies, they always return to the starting point. Those who are mesmerized by the illusory thinking of Seth and Oren believe they possess ultimate clarity. They are eager to step into the New Age, yet they are completely unsure of what this New Age entails. They charge forward with blind faith. If I were to shout at them, "Wake up! You're drunk," would they listen? Chairman Mao once said, "With the crow of the rooster, the world awakens." This statement was not directed at people but at the formless, intelligent non-material structures that induce illusory thinking. It meant, I have arrived. I am now in charge. You must all retreat, go back to where you came from. This land is mine now, and I will not tolerate your mischief any longer. Soon after, the Smash Superstition, Liberate Thought movement and the Sweep Away All Monsters and Demons campaign were launched. As a result, ghost possessions, spirit dances, fortune-telling, exorcisms and rituals for the dead, ritualistic ceremonies in weddings and funerals, secret societies, Taoist sects, along with prostitution, opium, and gambling, nearly disappeared from China. Indeed, with the crow of the rooster, the world awakens, just as someone lost in circles snaps back to reality at the sound of a rooster's crow. Illusory thinking harms both oneself and others. Once trapped, even 18 oxen cannot pull a person back. This is especially dangerous when intellectuals, government officials, celebrities, financial moguls, and so-called spiritual masters fall into this mindset. Their every word and action influence countless others. Illusory thinking is alluring, even dazzling. It surpasses material, image, and associative thinking because it taps into non-material energy. Even the greatest scientists struggle to refute it logically or theoretically. The solution requires wisdom far beyond ordinary intelligence. Only a higher level of consciousness can dissolve the fog of illusion and guide people back to reality. Some prophets can predict the future, yet they remain baffled by the reasoning behind their visions. Some shamans and sorcerers can exorcise evil spirits, but they have no understanding of the cause. Some astrologers can foresee major events, yet they are completely unaware of their origins. Some fortune-tellers, diviners, and graphologists may sometimes be remarkably accurate, but they are clueless about the true source of their insights. I do not intend to criticize these masters, but if they could uncover the underlying principles behind their abilities, it would be an immeasurable virtue. Illusory thinking has an undeniable allure, it can be utterly mesmerizing. There is no harm in occasionally venturing into its depths, so long as one returns in time. It is like encountering a breathtakingly beautiful woman, one who possesses infinite charm and irresistible grace. Engaging in a brief, appropriate interaction with her is not a problem. But be warned, this exquisitely alluring, delicate, and radiant beauty, dazzling like the fabled enchantresses of old, may in truth be a Bausi, a Dodgy, or a ghostly temptress in disguise. The moment you let your guard down and surrender yourself to her completely, you are doomed, your very life will be at stake. Every argument may seem flawless, yet the conclusion is wrong. Every step may appear correct, yet the final result is the opposite of what was intended. You may believe you are always right, but in the end, you will only return to where you began. This is the nature of illusory thinking. In such moments, ask yourself, is there a flaw in the path I am walking? If I continue this way, where will it ultimately lead me? From time to time, seek guidance from Jesus, the Buddha, Muhammad, or Laozi, and you will not go astray. Visualized thinking. Xiefeng. We have already explored material thinking, image thinking, associative thinking, and illusory thinking. It is clear that over 95% of humans live within the confines of these four types of thinking. To break free from their constraints, one must enter a higher state of thinking, and visualized thinking is one of the methods to transcend these limitations. Visualized thinking is about using consciousness to create reality. The phenomena of the vast world are numerous, strange, and dazzling, overwhelming the senses. If we dive deep into these phenomena and focus solely on them, we will forever be lost in the maze they create. To escape this maze, we must rise above it and observe these phenomena from a higher vantage point, as if looking down from above. The environment is shaped by the mind, and consciousness creates reality, this is a fact. So how do we create reality? We do it with visualized thinking. I have mentioned visualized thinking in my previous articles and provided examples. One example comes from when I was studying at Zhangjiago Geological Technical School. I sat alone by the raised railroad track, and at that moment, a clear mental image appeared in my mind. Several years later, this image materialized. When I found myself in that actual environment, I had a sense of unveiling a cosmic mystery. Later, while chatting with a friend by a swimming pool in Zimbabwe, he described scenes he had imagined years earlier, which then unfolded exactly as he had envisioned. This evidence made me even more certain that everything is created by the mind. This is one of the secrets of the universe. I also reflected on my own life and realized that coming to Zimbabwe and opening a shop in Harare were both things I had previously envisioned. Reality was strictly following the images in my mind. Pay attention, this is groundbreaking evidence and a revolutionary way of thinking. This secret is not something I wish to spread widely, I only share it with Chanyuan Celestials, and only with those who believe in me and whose hearts resonate with mine. You have given up yourselves, and thus, you have gained yourselves. You wholeheartedly safeguard Xiefeng, forgetting yourselves, and thus, you are able to possess yourselves. However, those like Xiaoxi, Chenyan Celestial, and Sitong, who strive to hold on to themselves, ultimately lose themselves. They will never escape the maze of illusions. From this, we can witness the truth of Jesus' words and the profound wisdom of Buddha. Only by letting go of oneself and achieving selflessness can one truly gain oneself and attain supreme enlightenment and great wisdom. Diligence is correct, while laziness is dangerous. However, even diligence requires proper methods. Being busy does not necessarily mean being diligent. One can be busy for a lifetime without achieving anything meaningful. Now, we must focus our time and energy on what truly matters. We must accomplish in a single day what ordinary people would take a year to achieve. We must complete in a few years what ordinary people would need thousands or even tens of thousands of years to finish. How do we do this? By using visualized thinking. For example, if you want to live in a luxurious villa, conventional thinking dictates that you must first earn money, then once you have enough, hire someone to design a blueprint or purchase one, buy land and materials, and hire a construction team to build according to the blueprint. This process takes a long time and may not even succeed. This is the slow approach. The smarter approach is to first calm your mind, then, in a meditative state, visualize the villa in detail. The clearer the image in your mind, the better. Once you have fixed this mental image in your consciousness, the negative universe will mobilize everything, including yourself, to help you realize this vision. The only remaining factor is time. Some wishes may take a few years, while others may take longer, but realization is inevitable. In this way, our lives will no longer be aimless, and our time will be spent on what truly matters. Now, everyone should begin practicing. Start visualizing the future of your life and life. My suggestion is to first imagine a paradise, envisioning the joy and freedom of us Chanyuan celestials living together happily. Then, imagine life in the 1,000-year world, and further, imagine life on the celestial islands continent of the Elysium world. Other desires, such as seeking fame and legacy, are too insignificant and are best left unconsidered. It is crucial to always visualize positive things and beautiful scenes, never imagine suffering, hardship, or disaster. In my article on unconventional thinking, I discussed how former Minister of Culture Xing Zhendwa died in an Afghan plane crash, which he had previously imagined. Last year, I read about a human rights activist whose death played out exactly as he had described in his diary beforehand. This demonstrates that the negative universe's energy is impartial, neither kind nor cruel, it simply follows the images one envisions. If you think of good things will come, if you think of bad things will come. I have also observed that many pro-democracy activists who ended up in prison had previously written about imprisonment in their articles. They believed that a true activist must experience imprisonment, viewing it as a university, a credential, or an inevitable path. This shows that their imprisonment was something they had visualized in advance. One must never imagine negative outcomes. For example, do not visualize a plane crash before boarding a flight, do not imagine failure before undertaking a task, and do not picture tragedies befalling your loved ones. If such thoughts arise, reject them immediately and firmly say, "No," in your mind. Your thinking must be clear, and you must not send negative or chaotic signals to the negative universe. Energy is neutral, anyone can use the energy of the negative universe through thinking, just as anyone who turns on a faucet will receive water. However, if your thinking is chaotic, the negative universe will only grant you a chaotic life. Once you understand the value and mystery of visualized thinking, apply it fully. If you have enough confidence, you can move mountains, part oceans, and create universes. However, please note that all thoughts must be directed towards positive development, never towards negative outcomes. The images you visualize should benefit not only yourself but also others, all of humanity, all life, and the entire universe. Visualize harmony, nature, and beauty. Do not let ambition grow too great, as extremes will always lead to the opposite result. Do not disrupt symmetry and proportion. The principles behind visualized thinking cannot be fully explained in a short article, a deeper understanding requires knowledge of the non-material world. However, what I have explained here is sufficient for practical application. You do not need to understand a computer's internal structure and principles to use it, you only need to know how to operate it. Starting now, we must not wander aimlessly or waste time excessively learning from others' wisdom. Every article I write is enough for deep contemplation and study. Use my writings as a foundation to search for all related knowledge, examples, and wisdom, whether from Christ, Buddha, prophets, sages, ordinary people, or science. All of these will help you understand what I write. If you do not know me and have never read the Chanyuan corpus or Xiefeng corpus, you may still have doubts. But by now, you should recognize that the knowledge encompassed in my thinking is vast. My thinking is holographic, it encompasses a grand system of the universe, space-time, life, gods, Buddhas, and celestial beings. You should deepen your faith in Xiefeng. Every day, take some time to meditate and create your visualized images. Imagine the most beautiful future for yourself. Tai Chi thinking. Xiefeng. Why is life so confusing? It is because the myriad phenomena confound our thinking. The complex and multifaceted matters imprison our minds. The constant changes weaken our spirits. The daily struggles with food, clothing, shelter, and transportation bind the wings of our freedom. The diverse ideologies and viewpoints exhaust us, leaving us directionless. On top of that, the correct values and morals passed down by our ancestors stifle our imagination and constrain our exploratory spirit. As a result, we remain ignorant of the meaning and value of life. Without transcending all these phenomena and the constraints of time and space, we will never escape the labyrinth of life. There are countless religious doctrines in the world. Which one is correct? There are vast amounts of political platforms. Which one is truly right? Countless brilliant experts and scholars have expounded numerous theories. Which one is truly useful to us? Life is filled with boundless pursuits. What should we truly pursue? The kind and diligent are often marginalized, while the bold and wicked lead luxurious lives. Seekers of Tao are often neglected on the cliffs, while shallow noisy ones are favored by society. Goodness does not always receive its reward, nor does evil always meet its consequences. Hard work is sometimes washed away like flowing water. Wealth accumulated over years can be wiped out in an instant by political upheavals or natural disasters. The person we yearn for does not come near, while troubles always appear before us. Those closest in distance may not be our kindred spirits, while those far away may linger in our thoughts. Reality and ideals often diverge. Even when our minds are clear, we often feel powerless. What kind of program is this? Are we merely pieces on a chessboard? Escaping from the wolf's den only to enter the tiger's lair, casting off worldly robes only to drape oneself in a monk's cassock. When lonely, one longs for liveliness, when among crowds, one craves solitude. When single, one desires marriage, after marriage, one contemplates divorce. Going in circles endlessly, only to find that all is in vain. What, then, is the purpose of living? Fatigue and helplessness mark the trajectory of most beings. The mundane live a life of toil and frustration. Ambitious schemers stir up trouble to serve their ends. Instigating and inciting internal strife is the specialty of small-minded individuals. Obsessively splitting hairs to defend their own interests is the fanatical tool of party followers and religious believers, who never stop chattering. Political figures create endless movements to blind people's vision for their own goals. Self-deception and grandstanding are the tactics of those unwilling to accept the status quo. Some revel in nitpicking and dousing others' enthusiasm simply out of boredom. Spreading gossip and stirring trouble are the favorite pastimes of troublemakers. In such a society and era, without Tai Chi thinking, it is difficult to make sense of everything. What is Tai Chi thinking? Tai Chi thinking is the ability to transcend the constraints of myriad phenomena, using the wisdom of celestial beings to discern the fundamental principles governing the universe. By grasping these principles, one can gain a clear vision of life's purpose and swiftly achieve the sublimation of life, completing the arduous journey of existence with ease. The core of Tai Chi thinking is the yin-yang duality. No matter how many phenomena exist, they all fall into the category of yin or yang. By using yin-yang as a guiding principle, we can grasp the overarching structure of the world and gain clarity in our thoughts, transforming chaos into tranquility and confusion into understanding. The ultimate origin is Wuji, the state of limitless potential, which gives rise to Tai Chi, the supreme ultimate. Tai Chi generates yin and yang generate the four symbols generate the 8 trigrams, and the 8 trigrams generate the 64 hexagrams, which in turn give birth to the myriad things of the universe. Now, instead of starting from the vast complexities of the universe, we work in reverse, discarding the myriad phenomena, the hexagrams, the 8 trigrams, and the 4 symbols, and directly focusing on yin-yang. By observing all matters through this duality, we can find the optimal path for life and existence. The principle of yin-yang is symmetry and balance. Its primary aspects include positive and negative, true and false, good and evil, beauty and ugliness, love and hate, and so on. By categorizing all phenomena within this framework, we can establish order in our thinking and achieve clarity, turning busyness into tranquility and bewilderment into lucidity. Now, let us use Tai Chi thinking to analyze 8 key aspects of life. The world consists of 2 fundamental parts, yin and yang. One either belongs to yin or yang, the middle ground is confusion. Yin corresponds to the non-material and the non-material world, while yang corresponds to matter and the material world. What we perceive with our senses, sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch, belongs to the material world, whereas thoughts and inspirations belong to the non-material world. We either exist in the material world or in the non-material world. If we dwell in between, we become lost. Life's confusion stems from being caught between the material and non-material worlds, unable to distinguish between reality and illusion, truth and falsehood. Something may seem real but is fleeting and illusory, something may seem false but feels undeniably true. This is the root of religious and philosophical perplexities and why the teachings of Jesus, Buddha, and other sages are often misunderstood. In essence, all religious discourses revolve around these 2 concepts, sometimes speaking of yin, sometimes of yang, but never truly transcending them. There are 2 kinds of people who are happy. One kind is atheists. They focus only on the material world. If there is wine today, they drink and enjoy it. If there is no wine tomorrow, they drink plain water without concern. They do not believe in or acknowledge the existence of the non-material world, nor do they believe in the cycle of life and reincarnation or in karma and retribution. They recognize only reality and care only about this life. They never think about heaven or hell, never consider karmic consequences and affinities, and never concern themselves with how their words and actions might affect their future life. As a result, they do not feel burdened, they live simply, always preoccupied with material interests. Unlike religious believers and seekers of the Tao, they do not suffer from spiritual torment. They are not as cautious and overthink things as those people do, nor do they live in constant anxiety. The second type consists of those who focus entirely on the non-material world. They see through worldly illusions and remain detached from material concerns. Whether nations rise or fall, whether humanity thrives or perishes, whether the earth continues or vanishes, none of it disturbs them, for their consciousness dwells in the non-material world. The ones who live with exhaustion are those who dwell in the material world yet refuse to let go of anything in it, while also yearning to obtain everything from the non-material world. They are unwilling to abandon their pursuit of the afterlife, yet they know little to nothing about what the material world truly is, what the non-material world is, or how the 2 are connected. At most, they have only a superficial understanding. This ignorance leads to inner conflicts and spiritual suffering. If they focus purely on pursuing the material world, they seem to have a vague sense that they might be missing something and fear losing the blessings of the afterlife. But if they devote themselves entirely to seeking the grace of the non-material world, they worry about missing out on the pleasures of this life. In the end, they achieve neither, losing both worldly possessions and spiritual fulfillment. The vast majority of religious believers fall into this category. I do not advocate for any of these 3 approaches to life. The first is blindly optimistic, the second contradicts human nature, and the third leads to unnecessary suffering. Instead, I propose a way of living where the mind fully resides in the non-material world while the body fully enjoys the material world. This way, life continuously ascends toward the heavenly kingdom while the body experiences the joys of existence. Shift your thinking, move toward the heavenly kingdom, live gracefully, and have no regrets in life. Tai Chi Thinking, Continuation 1. Xiefeng. The core of Tai Chi thinking lies in the unity of opposites, the interplay of yin and yang. Whether analyzing the structure and operational systems of the vast world, or exploring the mysteries of the evolution of life structures, whether maintaining the balance and harmony of all things, or adjusting the internal and external balance of body and mind to facilitate self-cultivation, whether guiding national management with flexible and adaptive strategies, or handling interpersonal relationships with the wise use of various social factors, Tai Chi thinking serves as a key to understanding. By skillfully using this key, one can simplify the complex, bring order out of chaos, turn the unclear into the clear, and transform decay into something miraculous. In applying Tai Chi thinking, we divide everything into opposites that are unified, because this is the way of things. Yang, yin male, female masculine, feminine. Firm, gentle active, passive bright, dark. Internal, external positive, negative master, follower. Strong, weak good, evil beneficial, harmful. Love, hatred beauty, ugliness truth, falsehood. Smooth, opposing superior, inferior. Noble, low wealthy, poor life, death. Survival, extinction prosperity, decay empty, form. Have not success, failure gain, loss. Heat, cold clarity, impurity even, odd. Giving, taking sorrow, joy loyalty, deceit. Tranquility, restlessness honor, disgrace. Buddha, demon god, ghost. Virtual, real righteous, evil departure, union. Encounter, separation above, below joy, anger. Large, small many, few cold, warm. Left, right heaven, earth water, fire. Humble, arrogant quick, slow internal, external. Close, distant buying, selling enemy, friend. Enter, exit. The opposites listed above exist together in a balanced state of unity, depending on and influencing each other. Without one, the other would cease to exist. It can be said that they are intertwined in a life and death relationship. Without yin, there would be no yang, without truth, there would be no falsehood, without death, there would be no life, without hell, there would be no heaven. The universe is symmetrical and balanced, without symmetry, the universe would not exist. In the previous article, we discussed the application of Tai Chi thinking in relation to 8 aspects, and we have already covered one of them. Now, let us continue. Kind-hearted people often have a doubt: if the greatest creator is omnipotent, righteous, and compassionate, why does he not destroy Satan? Why does he allow Satan to harm human society? As a result, some conclude that the greatest creator does not exist because he does not care for humanity. This accusation is a great injustice to the greatest creator, for it is precisely this apparent indifference that maintains the symmetrical balance of the universe and the operation of Tai Chi. Without the North Pole, there would be no South Pole, without the poles, the Earth would not exist, and thus humanity would cease to exist. Allowing Satan to exist is, in fact, the greatest creator's greatest care and love for humanity. If Satan were destroyed, hell would necessarily disappear, and if hell were destroyed, heaven would inevitably be ruined, causing the entire universe to return to a chaotic, lifeless state of non-being. Generation after generation of benevolent people have sought the path to equality among all beings, aiming to eliminate distinctions between high and low, rich and poor. This noble ideal, while admirable, is contrary to the principles of Tai Chi. I once thought about putting my gardener on an equal footing with me, allowing him to write this article on Tai Chi thinking, while I cleaned the courtyard, washed dishes and clothes, and let him accompany my friends on a trip. I would watch over his house and courtyard. This would eliminate the distinction between the gardener and me in terms of status and wealth. However, this would decrease efficiency. To have him write this article, it might take him several years, and I would not be able to maintain the courtyard as clean and orderly as he does. Reality has shown me that if we want everything to be in order and to maximize human intelligence and talent, we must assign work according to individual abilities. Each person should be positioned according to their strengths. If roles are artificially swapped, inefficiency will follow. A lion would go hungry, while a squirrel would be overfed. This is a tremendous waste of both human and natural resources. Chinese culture has a deeply ingrained mindset: worry about inequality rather than poverty. If one is rich, all must be rich; if one is poor, all must be poor. If one lives, all must live; if one dies, all must die. Poverty is not feared, but inequality is. Throughout history, nearly all large-scale peasant uprisings have been driven by the ideal of equalizing wealth. This long-standing way of thinking has led to the conclusion that only socialism can save China, because only under socialism can wealth be equalized, and the differences between urban and rural areas, workers and farmers, and mental and physical laborers be eliminated. But what has been the result? The result has been the restriction of productivity and a massive waste of human intelligence and talent. This ideology is neither theoretically sound nor practically viable. Why? Because it violates the natural law of the unity of opposites between superiority and inferiority, wealth and poverty. Understanding this allows us to calmly view the contradictions that exist in society under any circumstances. We can analyze and resolve problems based on facts, develop a correct self-evaluation, and set realistic directions for our personal growth. Tai Chi Thinking, Continuation 2. Xiefeng. April 3, 2006. Since the structure of the universe follows the principles of Tai Chi, a unified opposition formed by two contradictory forces, any attempt to eliminate one side of the contradiction is not only futile but also goes against the natural order. Life must live, death must die, good must be good, bad must be bad. Good and evil ride side by side, joy and sorrow share the same stage, love and hate advance hand in hand, and the flow of existence weaves through an endless cycle of coming and going. Universal love and compassion will never fully tame humanity, just as hatred and evil will never fully conquer it. Gentle breezes and bright sunshine may give birth to fierce storms, and calm seas may precede devastating earthquakes. This perpetual cycle continues, ups and downs, ebbs and flows. The universe evolves in this way: life rises and falls, dynasties rise and fall, and extremes lead back to their opposites. The purpose of understanding the laws of existence is not to resign ourselves to passive acceptance but to cultivate inner clarity and walk in harmony with the Tao. It is also to free ourselves from confusion and illuminate the path ahead. Continuing from the previous article. It is right for people to have good intentions, and it is justifiable to uphold justice, but when taken to extremes, these efforts disrupt the balance of Tai Chi and often lead to the opposite of what is intended. The practitioners of Life Genuine seek the super-celestial fruit; they are not here to govern the earth. No matter how turbulent the winds and waves may be, no matter how flowers bloom and wither, we must remain steady, sitting calmly like a fisherman on a boat, strolling leisurely through life, unshaken and at peace. So, how should we handle daily interactions with people? And how should we view the ever-changing world around us? Once we understand the principles of Tai Chi, we should apply Tai Chi thinking. Everything operates within the Tao. Our personal energy is sufficient only to refine our own lives and extend our lives to heaven, but it is not enough to change the destiny of others or alter the course of human society. We must always remember that we are small, like blades of grass. Attempting to change others or transform society is futile; not only will it fail, but it may also interfere with grand cosmic plans that lie beyond our perception. Therefore, even with our closest family and friends, we can only give our best efforts, but we cannot take over their lives. We cannot walk their paths for them. Do not be troubled or sorrowful over their lack of understanding. Once we have done our part, our debts are repaid, and we can let go in peace. We should adopt a detached perspective, rising above worldly concerns. To be truly extraordinary means to fulfill our responsibilities without letting them weigh us down. Once we see through it all, we will be close to becoming celestial beings. This applies to family and friends as well as to strangers. Let things flow naturally, act when opportunities arise. When the opportunity arises, offer enlightenment to those who are receptive, but do not carry unnecessary burdens. When events arise, the mind responds; when they pass, the mind is at peace. Do not imitate Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, who vowed to empty hell; rather, practice transcendence without attachment to transcendence. Once we grasp the principles of Tai Chi, we can handle worldly affairs with ease. Families do not last forever, nations do not belong to us, and Earth is merely a temporary resting place on our journey. Everything belongs to the greatest Creator, so why should we worry? Who becomes president, who mines gold, who rises, who falls, all of it is arranged by the Tao. We are merely spectators, watching the movie the Tao is playing for us. We should simply be grateful to the greatest Creator. On our journey through life, we will inevitably encounter fraudsters, thieves, scoundrels, and rascals. These are nothing more than passing episodes, lessons and insights arranged by the Tao for us to experience. There is no need to dwell on them. For amusement, it is fine to say what suits the listener, speak to people in their way and to ghosts in theirs. Occasionally letting out some coarse language to vent and regulate your emotions can be an interesting and refreshing experience. However, never obsess over being a good person, and never assume the role of a moral authority. Sometimes, the Tao employs methods such as fighting poison with poison, or using evil to suppress evil, just as law enforcement may use informants or undercover agents to maintain order. If we interfere with these mechanisms, we may unknowingly disrupt a greater plan. Without understanding the Tao or the grand strategy of the universe, actions that seem good on the surface may, in fact, do harm. This is why I always emphasized the importance of following the guidance of the heart. Perfect yourself, act in accordance with your heart, and revere the greatest Creator. Enlightenment is assured. Do not worry about world affairs or others' deviation from the Tao. Not worrying is, in itself, the highest form of care. The more you worry, the more negativity you attract. We should focus on one thing: how to extend our life to the Celestial Islands continent within the limited time we have. As for my goal of unifying all religions and reviving Chinese culture, these are merely for enjoyment, part of the game of life. There is no need to take them too seriously. Taiji Thinking, Continuation 3. Xiefeng. April 9, 2006. The core of Taiji thinking lies in the unity of opposites, where opposing forces, yin and yang, are dialectical rather than rigid or fixed. If one clings solely to opposition without recognizing transformation, they will lose their way. Yin can become yang, and yang can become yin, good can turn into evil, and evil into good, closeness can turn into distance, and distance into closeness. Success implies failure, and failure signifies success. Opposing forces shift and transform according to changes in time and space. 30 years east of the river, 30 years west of the river. What is long divided will surely unite, what is long united will surely divide. Great events in the world follow this pattern. The rise and fall of empires, the transformation of oceans into mulberry fields, such changes are like flipping planks on a wall. Fortune hides within misfortune, and misfortune harbors fortune. On the first day of the lunar month, the moon is invisible; by the 15th, it is full and bright. Today's friend may become tomorrow's most dangerous enemy. Today's hardship may be the seed of tomorrow's success. Excessive joy leads to sorrow, and unrestrained desire breeds disaster. Opposing forces are constantly evolving, each moving toward the opposite of its essence. Strength ultimately leads to decline. Great strength inevitably gives way to weakness and decay. The Roman Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the British Empire have all faded into history, while the United States and the European Union have risen. The rule of the proletariat was short-lived, and the bourgeoisie has once again taken power. Suppressed love can turn into hatred, kindness can transform into harm, and harm can give rise to kindness. Life is the root of death, and death is the source of life. When things reach their peak, they begin to decline. This is called going against the Tao. Those who go against the Tao will not last long. When one reaches the limits of poverty, they seek change. When they reach an end, they find a new beginning. The five elements create and restrain each other in an ongoing cycle. Strength and prosperity are hard to maintain without restraint. Comets come and go, geese fly south and return. There is no permanent coming or going, only endless cycles of rise and fall. The new will become old. The new will inevitably become old, and the old will reappear in a new form. This aligns with the Taiji principle of transformation. Once we understand this, we realize that Christianity, Buddhism, Islam, Communism, and even the United States will eventually decline, making way for life genuine to take their place. The transformation of forms. All forms, whether ideological or societal, transform according to the principles of Taiji. In the past, people communicated mainly through letters. Who writes letters now? Cinemas were replaced by televisions, which are now being replaced by computers. Geological surveys once required on-site personnel, now satellites handle the task. Wars once depended on close combat, today, long-range attacks dominate. Documents were once written on parchment or bamboo slips, painstakingly carved or handwritten. Now, old typewriters are museum relics, abacuses have been replaced by computer keyboards, and analog film has been surpassed by digital photography. In the past, multi-generational households were celebrated, but today, individual rights and personal independence are emphasized. Change is accelerating, and outdated concepts of family, nation, political parties, and religion are disintegrating. A new ideological and societal structure is bound to emerge. Humanity is in the midst of this transformation. Whether our thinking can keep pace with this rapidly changing era will determine our survival. Speed determines victory. Victory depends on speed. Walking, horse-drawn carriages, bicycles, and even cars are no longer sufficient for modern society. Airplanes and rockets cannot match the speed of computer networks. Clinging to old systems and rigid traditions is no longer viable. Similarly, in the field of cultivation, traditional practices such as meditation, breath control, fasting, and fetal breathing are too slow. We must take shortcuts and begin with our thinking, striving to accomplish in one day what took predecessors a lifetime. The end of individual heroism. The era of individual heroism is coming to an end. It is becoming increasingly difficult for any one person to stand out because it is impossible to master the vast and rapidly expanding body of knowledge in a short time. No individual can fully grasp all the information within even a single field. Connections between individuals, society, and nature are becoming increasingly close and frequent. Isolation and self-reliance are no longer viable. What you take pride in today may be obsolete by tomorrow. The only way forward is to integrate yourself into collective wisdom, play your role as a cell within the larger whole, and find your place within it. To be continued. Tai Chi Thinking, Continuation 4. Xiefeng. April 10, 2006. One yin, one yang, that is the Tao. All things carry yin and embrace yang. Through the interplay of these energies, they achieve harmony. In the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Medicine, the Yellow Emperor states, Yin and Yang are the Tao of heaven and earth, the guiding principles of all things, the parents of transformation, the roots of life and death, and the dwelling of divine wisdom. An excess of Yin leads to Yang disorders, and an excess of Yang leads to Yin disorders. Yang disorders are treated by addressing Yin, and Yin disorders are treated by addressing Yang. The insights of Laozi and the Yellow Emperor offer the best interpretation of Yin and Yang. While neither explicitly elevated these concepts to the level of Tai Chi, their theories are grounded in Tai Chi thinking. The entirety of the Tao Te Ching embodies Tai Chi wisdom. Laozi's thought process is inherently Tai Chi thinking, as reflected in passages such as being and non-being create each other, difficulty and ease complement each other, long and short form each other, high and low rely on each other, sound and voice harmonize, front and back follow one another. Non-action accomplishes everything. Without selfish desires, one can fulfill their own purpose. What exists is useful, what is empty gives function. Because it does not overflow, it is renewed. What is bent will be made whole, what is crooked will be straightened, what is hollow will be filled, what is worn out will be renewed, what is diminished will be gained, what is excessive will lead to confusion. All of these are manifestations of Tai Chi thinking. Tai Chi in traditional Chinese medicine. Traditional Chinese medicine, TCM, places great emphasis on the balance of yin and yang. The eight principal syndrome differentiation is essentially a differentiation of yin and yang. Conditions such as external, heat, and excess are yang syndromes, while internal, cold, and deficiency are yin syndromes. In the Huangdi Neijing, the Yellow Emperor's classic of medicine, the chapters, the great treatise on the correspondence of yin and yang, the treatise on the separation and union of yin and yang, the treatise on the differentiation of yin and yang, and the treatise on the categories of yin and yang, elaborate in detail on how yin and yang correspond to various aspects of existence, including heaven and earth, humanity, the four seasons, cold and heat, water and fire, wind and clouds, form and energy, sound and voice, color and taste, internal organs, internal and external states, and life and death. The knowledge of yin and yang is profound, and Tai Chi thinking is an incredibly advanced wisdom. The purpose of learning is mastery, and the purpose of mastery is application. No matter how great knowledge is, if it cannot be applied, then our brains become mere garbage bins. While such knowledge may impress others, it is ultimately useless in practical matters. This is the final discussion on Tai Chi thinking. In the first article, I mentioned that we would explore 10 aspects of this concept. Now, we have arrived at the last topic. All things carry yin and embrace yang. Human beings are part of all things, and thus, we also carry yin and embrace yang. What is the yin that we carry? It is the non-material world. Behind life lies the entire non-material world, and we are backed by it. Without the non-material world, there would be no yin, without yin, there would be no yang, and without yang, we would not exist. How are we connected to the non-material world? We are linked through our spirit, mind, thinking, and consciousness. The breadth and depth of our connection depend on the fluctuations of our spirit, the frequency of our mind, the sharpness of our thinking, and the depth of our consciousness. The non-material world is a vast and colorful universe invisible to the naked eye,